everyone. How are you all today? Welcome to the fourth, fifth, fifth, fifth session of revision class by SUVY Classes. I am Sumita Arun. We have reached halfway in this month's fifth session. Yes, and we are going to do the last chapters in the textbook. Are you all excited? Wasn't it so much fun to be doing all these chapters in such a quick and in so much in a quiz way? Yes, I loved it. I did not even realize that we finished two texts. We just started, right? It's so much great to know that you all are enjoying it. So, why don't we start today's class? This is not session 2. That's session 5. Sorry, I made a mistake. My mistake. Okay, so from honeycomb, we are going to do bicycle in good repair. That's kind of a funny story, I guess. It's good, it's a hilarious one. Then we are going to do the poem Garden Snake. And there is a story, the next chapter, that's the story of cricket. I'm sure many of us are very much interested in knowing about cricket. We are so fond of it, right? So that's a very interesting one for some and maybe not for some. That's okay. It's very good to have some new knowledge. So from Alien Hand, we are going to do a tiger in the house. That's also a little bit of a interesting story. I mean, everything is interesting. And also we're going to do an alien hand. Okay, so an alien hand, the same name. Okay, then we can realize why did that story's name come up as the book's name. Okay, that means there's something that is very important. Okay, so let's find out and jump into the first two chapters of Honeycomb. Okay, they are Bicycle in Good Repair and the Garden Snake. So I will present the screen where you can see the text and we can read all things together. Okay. So the first chapter is A Bicycle in Good Repair. So a man I knew proposed one evening we should go for a long bicycle ride together on the following day. And I agreed. I got up early for me. I made an effort. Okay. So it was a great deal for him to get up early. So what does it say about that? The author. It means he's not the person who gets up early every day. So getting up early for him was making a big effort. What is it about you? Are you a early riser or are you a late one? I am now one who gets up very early. I have to because I have lots of responsibilities. But I used to wake up late when I was young. Not very late, yeah, but I do wake up late. That is something I really liked. But even waking up early is also good because you finish off so much work when you're up early, right? So, both ways I used to enjoy. So, yes, and he was pleased with himself because he made that effort and he woke up early. So, the person with whom he was supposed to make a bike ride came in half an hour late. So, I was waiting for him in the garden. It was a lovely day. He said, "That's a good looking machine of yours. How does it run?" So, the author said, "Oh, like most of them." I answered, "Easily enough in the morning, goes a little stiffly after lunch." He caught hold of it by the front wheel and the fork and shook it violently. Okay, he held the cycle by the front wheel and the fork and he shook it very harshly. So the doctor said, "Don't do that, you'll hurt it, you'll hurt the bicycle." So I did not see why he should shake it. It had not it had not done anything to him, Besides, if it wanted shaking, I was the proper person to shake it because it's my cycle. I'm the one who can do that. When anyone come and just shake it, right? Because it's your property, you need to take care of it. So I felt much as I should had he started whacking my dog. Okay, so he felt as if he was doing something to his own properties, property or something to his something dear ones. So he did not like it. So the other guy said, the other man said, he said, this front wheel wobbles. Wobbles is it is moving not like usual. It's a little unsteady. Okay. So I said, it doesn't if you don't wobble it. So it won't wobble if you don't shake it so harshly. And it will obviously wobble when you shake it like that. It is supposed to move smoothly. Yes. So it didn't wobble as a matter of fact. Nothing worth calling a wobble. There was no problem. As such, it was only what the other guy was making of it. He said, this is dangerous. Have you got a hammer? I ought to have been firm, but I thought that perhaps he really did know something about the business. I went to the tool shed to see what I could find. When I came back, he was sitting on the ground with the front wheel between his legs. He was playing with it, twiddling it around between his fingers. The remnant of the machine was lying on the gravel path beside him. He said, it looks to me as if the bearings were all wrong. I said, don't you trouble about it any more, you will make yourself tired. Let's put it back and get off. So he was really shocked to see that the wheel of his cycle was in between his legs, and he was playing with it, and he was saying there were the bearings had some problem. So the author said there is nothing, no problem. Please don't do anything. You will tire yourself. Let's put it back and let's go for the ride. So the other man said, we may as well see what is the matter with it. Now it is out. Since it is anyways come out, let's see what's the problem. As if the wheel came out by itself and he didn't do anything. So before I could stop him, he had unscrewed something somewhere and out rolled all over the paths dozen or so little balls. So there were some ball bearings, I think. So that started rolling off. Catch him, he shouted, catch him. We mustn't lose any of them. He was quite excited about them. So we grovelled round for half an hour, found 16. He said he hoped we got them all because if not, it may make a serious difference to the machine. I put them for safety in my hat. It was not a sensible thing to do, I admit. So he kept all the balls, the metal balls, in his cap, in his hat. Okay. So he knew it was not very sensible to be doing that, but still, for safety, he did that. Now, what next? He then said that while he was about it, sorry, he would see to the chain for me and at once began taking off the gear case. So where the gear, he started now falling with the gear case because he said he will check the chain also since he's anyways doing these things with a wheel. I did try to dissuade him. He did try to tell him not to do it. Okay, that's not a good idea. From that, I told him what an experienced friend of mine once said to me solemnly. If anything goes wrong with your gear case, sell the machine and buy a new one. It comes cheaper. That's he was trying to tell him that he didn't like the idea of opening everything and checking. So the other man said, people talk like that who understand nothing about machines. Nothing is easier than taking off a gear case. So I had to confess he was right. In less than 5 minutes, he had the gear case in two pieces lying on the path and was groveling for screws. He said it was always a mystery to him the way screws disappear. So this is how the mechanic friend of him, the so called mechanic friend of him, was actually trying to put things into place. So common sense continued to whisper to me, stop him before he does any more mischiefs. You have a right to protect your own property from the ravages of a lunatic. Okay, so lunatic is a mad person. So he did actually behave like a lunatic because he was doing all sorts of things and he didn't know it actually in clarity of what to do. So take him by the scruff. Okay, this is the back portion of the nut. Take him by the scruff of the neck and kick him out of the cage. This was what his common sense was telling him continuously. But I am weak when it comes to hurting other people's feelings. So he is a little weak about hurting other people's feelings. So I let him muddle on. So he let him do whatever he wanted to with the bicycle. He gave up looking for the rest of the screws. He said screws had a knack of turning up when you least expect them, and that now he would see to the chain. He tightened it till it would not move. Next, he loosened it until it was twice as loose as it was before. Then he said we had better think about getting the front wheel back into its place again. I held the fork open, okay, where the wheel fits, okay, and he worried with the wheel. He tried to fix it. At the end of 10 minutes, I suggested he should hold the fork and I should handle the wheel. And we changed places. At length, we did get the thing into position, and the moment it was in position, he burst out laughing. I said, what's the joke? He said, well, I'm an ass. It was the first thing he had said that made me respect him. I asked him what led him to the discovery. He said, we have forgotten the balls. I looked for my hat and it was lying topsy turvy. It was the other way, okay? He had kept his hat like this. It was topsy turvy. So that means all the balls in that had fallen down. So he was all cheerful disposition. He said, well, we must put back all we can find and trust to Providence. So we must trust that it will work well. We found 11. First, they lost it. They found 16. And now, from the hat, it went down and they found 11. So we fixed 6 on one side and 5 on the other. And half an hour later, the wheel was in its place again. It need hardly be added that it really did wobble now. Now was the time when it did actually wobble. A child might have noticed it. He said it would do for the present. That now the boy with him said, it is fine for now. Okay, now you can manage. So I said, watching you do this is of real use to me. It is not only your skill that fascinates me, it is your cheery confidence in yourself, your inexplicable hopefulness that does me good. So, what fascinates the author is that his cheery confidence, that he's confident he can do it. Even if he doesn't know, he still believes he can do it. And that feeling that, yes, he will reach to that point and he will do it good. That feeling was actually what fascinated the author. So, thus encouraged, he set to work to refix the gear case. He stood the bicycle against the house and worked from the off side. Then he stood it against a tree and worked from the on side. So he's walking from this side and that side. Then I held it for him while he lay on the ground with his head between the wheels and worked at it from below and dropped oil upon himself. Then he took it away from him and doubled himself across till he lost his balance and slid over to his head. So now he's trying to hold the cycle and also fix the gear case. And then it all fell and he hurt his he fell on his head. Then he lost his temper and tried bullying the thing, the bicycle. I was glad to see showed spirit. So now he started getting angry on the bicycle because it is not standing. And the subsequent proceedings degenerated into a little less than a rough and a tumble fight between him and the bicycle. So one moment the bicycle would be on the gravel path and he on top of it. So one moment bicycle on would be down, he will be walking on top. The next it will be he lying down and the bicycle on top of him. Okay. There. Now, he would be standing flushed with victory, the bicycle firmly fixed between his legs. But his triumph would be short lived. By a sudden, quick movement, it would free itself and, turning upon him, hit sharply over the head with one of its hands. So he had held it tightly between his legs, and then one turn, and the handle hit him on his head. So at quarter to one. Okay, so it was around 12:30. Dirty and disheveled, all tired, cut and bleeding, he said, "I think that will do," and rose and wiped his brows. He wiped his brows. He's all tired. The bicycle looked as if it also had enough of it. Which had received most punishment, it would have been difficult to say. I took him into the back kitchen, where, so far was as was possible, he cleaned himself. Then I sent him home. So this was the story, okay? So the bicycle was in good condition just because the other guy felt there was some wobble. He had done a lot of things to that, and now it was in this condition that I don't think it'll be able to. I don't think it'll be able to even run. Okay, so now let's go to the poem. The garden snake. So I saw a snake and ran away. So I saw a snake in a garden and I ran away. Some snakes are dangerous, they say, but mother says that this kind of snake eats up only insects for his food. So when he wiggles in grass, how do grasses move? They don't have legs, they don't have hands, they wiggle. Okay. So when he wiggles in the grass, I stand aside and watch him pass and tell myself there is no mistake. It's just a harmless garden snake. So garden snakes are harmless. Okay. So why don't we do our quiz related to these stories? Are you all ready for it? Start. In your opinion, did the front wheel really wobble? I am not sure. Yes, slightly. No, it was fine. I think it was fine. What was your opinion? This was just an opinion that we all wanted, that you understood from the story. So the garden snakes are harmful. What do you think? Harmful? No. Harmless. Yes, that's correct. Got a second chance after an incorrect answer. Okay. So I got up early. For me, it implies that he was an early riser. No, it was he made an effort. He got up late that morning. He was a late riser because he made an effort. He wasn't late. He was early that day, but he made a lot of effort. The author put all the little balls that rolled out of the wheel for safety in his hat. That's correct. Okay. Why didn't this stop? Why didn't the author stop him from ruining his bicycle? He was weak in hurting others' feelings. He didn't want to disrespect. He didn't know the cycle would be damaged. He didn't know what to say. I think he was weak in hurting others' feelings. How does the snake move in grass? The snake wiggles. Yes, that's correct. We saw it in the text. And that's done. Wasn't that all quick? That's nice. And we got 100% accuracy. Awesome. So let's jump into the next story, the next chapter from Honeycomb, and that is the story of Cricket. So, how many of you really like watching cricket? First, let me know how many of you like watching cricket. I love watching cricket. I used to watch it when I was young. You know that DD1. I don't know if you guys know. There was this channel called DD1, and it would broadcast all the cricket um, matches, and we used to sit and watch. It used to be fun. Okay, but playing cricket, I haven't practiced that much, but I did like playing it. What about you? Did you all, I mean, do you like to play cricket and watch also? Please let me know. Okay, so that will help me know that if this story is interesting to you. Even in any case, it is interesting, but it gives a lot of information about cricket. And who wouldn't want to know about a sport, right? It's just knowledge. Okay, so yes. So this is about the story of cricket. Cricket grew out of the many stick and ball games played in England 500 years ago. So just imagine cricket started when 500 years ago. The word bat is an old English word that simply means stick or club. Okay, so yes, we know what the word bat means. So by the 17th century, cricket had evolved enough to be recognizable as a distinct name. Till the middle of the 18th century, bats were roughly the same shape as hockey sticks. So they have shown a picture of how bats used to be. So this is how bats used to be, the cricket bat used to be before. Okay, so yes. So bats were roughly the same shape as hockey sticks, curving towards at the bottom. Because even in the olden days, they used to play cricket as hockey itself. They used to roll the ball along the ground. Okay, they didn't pitch it. You must be knowing how they put the ball. It actually pitches and then goes to the. They throw it high, but it was not that way in the beginning. They used to roll the ball, so the curve at the end used to help the batsman give that chance to hit it. So one of the peculiarities of cricket is that test match can go on for 5 days and still end in a draw. So there was no other sport which could go even half of the time that cricket would take. So cricket was something which will go like 5 days, and even after that, may not need not be a win or lose situation. It could be a draw. So even baseball completes 9 innings in less than half the time. That is, it takes to play a limited overs match. So the shortened version of modern cricket. Another curious characteristic of cricket is that the length of the pitch is specified. Where the batsman stands, that is specified, it has to be 22 yards. But the size and shape of the ground is not. So it can be a big ground, okay, so that when you hit the six, in some grounds it will be six, but in some grounds it will be half of the ground. You've not even had a four, okay. That was how cricket was, because they used to only specify the length of the pitch where the batsman used to stand. So there's a historical reason behind both these oddities. Cricket was the earliest modern team sport to be codified. The first written laws of cricket were drawn up in 1744. They stated the principals shall choose from amongst the gentlemen present 2 umpires who shall absolutely decide all disputes. So the stumps must be 22 inches high and the bail across them 6 inches. Okay. The ball must be between 5 and 6 ounces and the two set of stumps 22 yards. So the world's first cricket club was formed in Hambledon in the 1760s, and the Marylebone Cricket Club was founded in 1787. During the 1760s and 1770s, it became common to pitch the ball through the air, okay, rather than roll it. So it was in the 1760s and 1770s that they started throwing the ball. instead of rolling it. So the change gave bowlers the opinion of length, deception through the air, plus increased pace. When you roll it, you did not get that speed. It also opened new possibilities for spin and swing. In response, batsmen had to master timing and shot selection. One immediate result was the replacement of the curved bat with the straight one. The weight of the bat was limited to between 5.5 to 5.75 ounces and the width of the bat to 4 inches. In 1774, the first leg before law was published. Leg before is when the ball touches the leg instead of the bat, you are out. Okay, that is leg before. So, also around this time, a third stump became common. There were only two before. Now it became the third stump also was common. By 1780, 3 days had become the length of a major match, and this year also saw the creation of the first six-seam cricket ball. If you look at the game's equipment, you can see how cricket both changed with changing times and it fundamentally remained true to its origin, rural England. Cricket's most important tools are all made of natural pre-industrial materials. The bat is made with leather, twine, and cork. Even today, both bat and ball are handmade, not industrially manufactured. The material of the bat changed slightly over time. Once it was cut out of a single piece of wood. Now it consists of two pieces. The blade, which is made of wood of the willow tree, and the handle is made out of cane. That became available as European colonialists and trading companies established themselves in Asia. Unlike golf and tennis, cricket had refused to make its tools with industrial or man-made materials. Plastic, fiber, glass, and metal have been firmly rejected. Okay, so only the cricket players or the cricket refuse to make their bat with anything other than wood. Also, they used to make, even now, it is only handmade and not machine made. Okay, but in the matter of protective equipment, cricket has been influenced by technological change. In the invention of vulcanized rubber led to the introduction of pads. They have pads for their legs, hands, okay, and protective gloves soon afterwards. And the modern game would be unimaginable without helmets made out of metal and synthetic lightweight materials. Now, the origin of cricket. The origin of Indian cricket are to be found in Bombay, and the first Indian community to start playing the game was the small community of Zoroastrians, the Parsis. Okay, so the first Indian community to start playing cricket in India was the Zoroastrians, the Parsis. Brought into close contact with the British because their interest in trade and the first Indian community to westernize the Parsis found the first Indian cricket club, the Oriental Cricket Club in Bombay in 1848. Parsi clubs were funded and sponsored by Parsi businessmen like the Tatas and the Wadias. The white cricket elite in India offered no help to the enthusiast Parsis. In fact, there was a quarrel between the Bombay Gymkhana, a whites only club, and Parsi cricketers over the use of public park. The Parsis complained that the park was left unfit for cricket because of the polo ponies of the Bombay Gymkhana dug up the surface. When it came, okay, so this is about all the rivalry between the Parsis and the Bombay Gymkhana. So all had a happy ending for the pioneers of Indian cricket. A Parsi team beat the Bombay Gymkhana at cricket in the 1889, just 4 years after the foundation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, an organization that was lucky to have amongst its early leaders the great Parsi statesman and intellectual Dadabhai Naoroji. Modern cricket is dominated by tests and one-day internationals played between national teams. The players who become famous, who live on in the memories of cricket's public, are those who have played for their country. The players Indian fans remember even now are those who were fortunate enough to play Test cricket with C.K. Naidu, an outstanding Indian batsman of his time, lives on in the popular imagination when some of the great contemporaries like Palwankar Vittal and Palwankar Ballu have been forgotten. Though Naidu was part of his cricketing prime when he played for India in its first test matches against England starting in 1932. His place in India's cricket history is assured because he was the country's first test captain. India entered the world of test cricket in 1932, a decade and a half before it became an independent nation. This was possible because Test cricket, from its origin in 1877, was organized as a contest between different parts of the British Empire, not sovereign nations. The first Test was played between England and Australia. So the first Test was played between England and Australia when Australia was still a white settler colony. Similarly, the small countries of the Caribbean that together make up the West Indies team were British colonies till well after the Second World War. So, television coverage changed cricket. It expanded the audience for the game by beaming cricket into small towns and villages. It also broadened cricket's social base. So, children now, because of technology, okay, because of the satellite television, there has been a worldwide reach of multinational television. I told you at the beginning when I was young, I used to watch it on TV because I used to get a clear idea of all the countries' cricket. Okay, so they used to broadcast all the countries' cricket shows, cricket matches. So it was very clear. I used to get a full idea of all the cricket players. So this all went famous only because of the technology. Okay, so 150 years ago, the first Indian cricketers, the Parsis, had to struggle to find an open space to play in. Today, the global marketplace has made Indian players the best paid, most famous cricketers in the game, men for whom the world is a stage. This transformation was made up of many smaller changes. The replacement of the gentlemanly amateur by the paid professional, the triumph of the one-day game as it overwhelmed Test cricket in terms of popularity, and the remarkable changes in global commerce and technology. Okay, so because of this, now the Indian players are the best paid, the most famous cricketers in the game, and where for them the world is the stage. Yes, the whole world knows them. Okay, so there is no poem after this. Yes, as this is the last chapter of the honeycomb. Now, why don't we start with our quiz? Don't you worry, it is a very simple quiz. I know there were a lot of things that you won't remember, so I have kept it as simple as possible. Okay, so let's start with the quiz. How is a cricket bat different from a hockey stick? It is straight. Okay, so the cricket bat is straight, but hockey bat is curved at the end. Yeah. So The ICC headquarters was shifted from London to Dubai. Not correct. Because there was widespread, because there was, it became famous in the Asian parts. So cricket is originally an Indian game? No. An international game? No. It's a British game. It started in India. Correct? The first test was played between England and Australia. Did I make a mistake? What was the mistake? In Australia. The first Indian community to start playing the cricket was the Parsis. Yes, the Zoroastrians, the Parsis. Okay, so was there a mistake? England, comma, Australia. Was it because of a pay that they had told me I was going wrong? That's not fair. And we're done. That's great. We are done with the quiz. So now it's time to go to the next book. That is okay. So let's start with the next book, that is The Alien Hand. There are two chapters from Alien Hand. They are A Tiger in the House. The first one. This is a very lovely story. So let's start. Timothy, the tiger cub, was discovered by grandfather in the Terai jungle near Delhi. Okay, just a second. Okay. Okay, one day when grandfather was strolling down the forest path at some distance from the rest of the party, okay, so yes, one day when grandfather was strolling down the forest path at some distance from the rest of the party, he discovered a little tiger about 18 inches long, hiding among the intricate roots of a banyan tree. Grandfather picked him up and brought him home. He had the distinction of being the only member of the party to have backed any game, dead or alive. At first, the tiger cub, who was named Timothy by grandfather, was bought entirely on milk given to him on a feeding bottle by our cook Mahmood. Okay, but the milk proved to be too rich for him, so he was put on diet of raw mutton and cod liver to the to be followed later by a more tempting diet of pigeons and rabbits. So Timothy was provided with two companions, Toto, the monkey, who was bold enough to pull the young tiger by the tail and then climb up the curtains if Timothy lost his temper. So he used to pull the tiger's tail, and if Timothy lost temper, he would climb up the curtains. Okay, and a small mongrel puppy found on the road by grandfather. At first, Timothy appeared to be quite afraid of the puppy and darted back with a spring if it came too near. He would make absurd dashes at it with his large forepaws and then retreat to a ridiculously safe distance. Finally, he allowed the puppy to crawl on his back and rest there. Okay, first he was scared of the puppy, and then gradually he started liking him and he let the puppy rest on his back. One of Timothy's favorite amusement was to stalk anyone who would play with him. So he used to follow them. So anyone who was playing with him, he used to follow them. And so when I came to live with grandfather, I became one of the tiger's favorites. So, with a crafty look in his glittery eyes and his body crouching, he would creep closer and closer to me, suddenly making a dash for my feet, rolling over his back and kicking with delight and pretending to bite my ankles. He was by this time the size of a full grown retriever dog you must have seen. When I took him out for walks, people on the road would give us a wide berth. Okay, so they used to keep a distance. Okay, because he is very, I mean, a tiger is a scary thing, right? Okay. So when he pulled hard on his chain, I had difficulty in keeping up with him. His favorite place in the house was the drawing room, and he would make himself comfortable on the long sofa, reclining there with great dignity and snarling at anybody who tried to get him off. So Timothy had clean habits and would scrub his face with his paws exactly like a cat. He slept at night in the cook's quarters and was always delighted to be let out by him in the morning. Okay. So one of these days, declared grandmother in her prophetic manner, we are going to find Timothy sitting on Mahmoud's bed and no sign of the cook except his clothes and shoes. Okay. So now, gradually, Timothy had started uh, having changes in his behaviors. Let's see what all changes did he show. That is what grandmother is trying to tell here. That so it never came to that, but when Timothy was about 6 months old, a change came over him. So there was a change when he became 6 months old. He grew steadily less friendly. He started being less friendly. When out for a walk with me, he would try to steal away to stalk a cat or someone's pet dog. He started now chasing cats and dogs. Sometimes at night, we would hear frenzied cackling from the poultry house, and in the morning, there would be feathers lying all over the veranda. Timothy had to be chained up more often, and finally, when he began to stalk Mahmoud about the house with what looked like villainous intent, grandfather decided it was time to transfer him to a zoo. Now his intentions changed. He started looking at people in a very dangerous way. So now grandfather decided to transfer him to a zoo, reserving a first class compartment for himself and Timothy. No one would share a compartment with them. Grandfather, so they booked a first class compartment for Timothy and grandfather. There was no one who shared that compartment with them. So grandfather took him to Lucknow, where the zoo authorities were only too glad to receive as a gift a well-fed and fairly civilized tiger. But they were very happy to get a well-fed and fairly civilized tiger. He used to behave well, right? But then, even then, he did have some of the other things. About 6 months later, when my grandparents were visiting relatives in Lucknow, grandfather took the opportunities of calling at the zoo to see how Timothy was getting on. I was not there to accompany him, but I heard all about it when I returned to Tehran. Arriving at the zoo, grandfather made straight for the particular cage in which Timothy had been interned. The tiger was there, crouched in a corner, full grown, and with a magnificent striped coat. Hello, Timothy, said grandfather, and put his arm through the bars of the cage. The tiger approached the bars and allowed grandfather to put both hands around his head. Grandfather stroked the tiger's forehead and tickled his ears, and whenever he growled, smacked him across the mouth, which was his old way of keeping him quiet. He licked grandfather's hands and only sprang away when a leopard in the next cage snarled at him. Grandfather shooed the leopard away, and the tiger returned to lick his hands. But every now and then the leopard would rush at the bars and he would slink back to his corner. A number of people had gathered to watch the reunion when a keeper pushed his way through the crowd and asked Grandfather what he was doing. I'm talking to Timothy, said Grandfather. Weren't you here when I gave him to the zoo 6 months ago?
I haven't been here very long, said the surprise keeper. Please continue your conversation, but I have never been able to touch him myself. He's always very bad tempered. Why don't you put him somewhere else? Suggested grandfather. That leopard keeps frightening him. I'll go and see the superintendent about it. Grandfather went in search of the superintendent of the school, but found that he had gone home early. And so, after wandering about the zoo for a little while, he returned to Timothy's cage. So now he went to the superintendent. He spoke. He wanted to talk to him about the leopard scaring him, and because of that, he was not feeling good. But he couldn't meet him because the superintendent had left early. So now he went to say goodbye to Timothy. But when he was there, Timothy was actually licking his hands and all, stroking, slapping everything. He saw an old keeper, another keeper, whom he had seen during the time when he was giving Timothy to the zoo. So he went and spoke to him. No, he didn't went. And he came, so the grandfather spoke to him, saying, "Why don't you actually keep this leopard somewhere else?" Timothy is getting very annoyed with him. He's getting very scared. So the keeper stammered and said, "But sir, it's not your tiger. Like I know, I realize it's not my tiger anymore. You are the ones who are taking care of it, but you can take a suggestion. What's the problem? Like, I remember your tiger well. He died 2 months ago. Died? Yes, sir, of pneumonia. The tiger was trapped. This tiger was trapped in a hill over last month, and he's very dangerous. Grandfather could think of nothing to say. The tiger was still licking his arm and increasing relish. See, he was actually licking because he now started to feel the flesh, the fresh flesh from grandfather's hand. Grandfather took what seemed to him an age to withdraw his hand from the cage. With his face near the tiger's, he mumbled, "Good night, Timothy," and giving the keeper a scornful look, walked briskly out of the zoo. So just imagine if he had known a little later what would have been happened. Okay, so now this is about the story An Alien Hat. So, Tilu, how often have you been told not to go that way? But why does Daddy go there every day? Because that's his job, Tilu. That way was an underground passage. Tilu's father went every day for work along that passage, and every day he came back from that direction. What lay at the end of that forbidden route? Not only Tilu, but a great majority of the community would have liked to know. Tilu's father was one of the select few permitted to go that way. The above conversation invariably took place between Tilu and his mother whenever he insisted on following his father. Today, however, was different. Tilu's father was enjoying a siesta at home, and Tilu managed to get hold of his security card. Then, evading his watchful mother's eye, Tilu made his way to the forbidden passage. A metal door barred his entry, but Tilu had watched his father slip the magic card into a slot. He did the same, and the door opened noiselessly. A well lit passage seemed to beckon him. Snatching the card which had come out of another slot in the wall, Tilu started his march along a gentle upward slope, for the passage led from the underground habitat to the surface of the planet. Tilu looked forward to seeing the sun if it was daytime, or the stars if it was night, about which he had heard and read so much. But alas, that wasn't to be. Tillo had underestimated the security arrangements. Invisible mechanical devices had already detected and photographed the small intruder, sent his picture to the central bureau where it was thoroughly checked, and before he had advanced 10 paces, a strong hand fell heavily on his shoulder. Gently but firmly, he was escorted by the security staff back home to an anxious and angry mother. While he was being scolded, he received help from an unexpected quote. "Let me explain to him, darling," said his father, who had just got. "If he is probably grieved, he will not do such a thing again," he started to explain. "Listen, Tilly, I work on a surface where an ordinary person cannot survive because the air is too thin to breathe and where the temperature is so low that you could freeze to death. But, Daddy, how do you manage to survive? Because I go well equipped in a special suit with a reservoir of oxygen. I can keep warm, and my boots are specially designed to make it easy for me to walk on the surface. What's more, I have been trained to survive and work on the surface. There was a time when our forefathers lived on the surface quite naturally. Indeed, they did so for millions of years. But time changed. The very sun which had provided us with sustenance turned hostile. So before, the sun used to give us a lot of things. Now it has become dangerous. Okay. So it changed only slightly, but the change was sufficient to upset the balance of nature on this planet. First, the birds became extinct. The animals followed. The fish couldn't bear it anymore either. We managed to survive only because of our superior technology, but we forced to live underground under artificial conditions. Thanks to solar energy, we can generate sufficient power to make our life comfortable. But the machines which make this possible must always be in good working condition. Some of them are on the surface. I belong to the team whose responsibility is to keep watch on them and to service them. "Daddy, can I join the team when I grow up?" "Of course, if you want to," said his father. "But for that, you must be a good boy and do as your parents tell you." His mother had, as usual, the last words. The next day, when Tilu's father went to work, he found the control room full of excitement. People were crowded round the big TV screen. It showed a dot in an otherwise clear background. It isn't a star, for it's changing its position. Our computer has given a trajectory for this thing. It's heading towards us, the supervisor of the last shift explained. "A spacecraft?" Tilu's father asked. By now, he was joined by his team on the new shift. "So we think it needs watching." "A spacecraft? Where?" "There was a spacecraft that was coming towards Earth, to the planet." "Where from?" "The solar system wasn't known to have any life anywhere else except on their planet." Tilu's father recalled the ancient days recorded in the archives at the Central Bureau, where their ancestors had a well developed space program and had searched the solar system with manned and unmanned spacecraft and found that they were indeed alone. Now, in the days of energy storage and underground life, they had no space program. They could only watch impotently from their vantage point. Who were they? Were these strangers? The conference room in the Central Bureau was so quiet that an outsider would have thought it was empty. Far from it, it was full to capacity, but the members of the Central Committee were unusually quiet. They knew that the president was going to make a momentous announcement. "Colleagues, I will give you the report as I have it. While I speak, there may be a change in the situation." The president paused to get his papers in order and then continued. "Two spacecrafts are approaching us. One is, in fact, orbiting our planet, while the other is still far. We guess that they are coming from our neighbor planet. How should we react? Number one, your views, please." So, this is what the president is asking the whole team, the whole Central Bureau Committee. Central Committee. So, number one was in charge of defense. He was known for his courage and wisdom. "Sir, if we wish, we can totally destroy these spacecraft with our missiles, but that won't make us any wiser. We don't have the capacity to render these craft unoperational in space. But should they land, We can render them ineffective anytime we choose. Our reports say that they do not contain living beings, they only have instruments. Number two, your opinion, please. The president asked the scientist on the committee. So, number one was the defense, number two was the scientist on the committee. I recommend non interference and passive observation. Since we do not know the power of the senders of these spacecrafts and we are still in the dark about their intentions, it is wise not to reveal our existence. If we destroy these spaceships or render them ineffective, we might reveal our existence. The president looked at number three, a social scientist. He rarely agreed with number two, but this was one of those rare occasions when he did. I agree with number two, sir. In fact, I will go so far as to say that we should keep our surface activities to the minimum, thus creating the impression that there is no life on this planet. Fortunately, our surface conditions do give that impression. Before the president could speak, his personal telephone rang. He lifted the receiver and listened quietly for a minute. Colleagues, the first spacecraft has landed. It was a red letter day in Tillo's life, the day he was waiting for his father had at last taken him to the control room. From here, he could see the alien spacecraft on his TV screen. What a funny looking thing, Daddy. What does it contain? Tillo asked. His father shook his head. Can't say for sure. We are only allowed to observe it from far. But we control of it, all of its parts and can exercise our power if it is up to any mischief. He pointed to an impressive panel with several colored buttons on it. Tillo looked at them wistfully. Look, it's up to something, Daddy. Tillo suddenly noted some movement in the spacecraft. Others in the control room saw it too. All eyes were now glued to the screen. A mechanical hand was emerging from the spacecraft. It was approaching the surface of the planet, bent and touched the soil. What was it up to? People crowded towards the screen for a closer look. The telescopic lens of the TV camera zoomed in to the tip of the mechanical hand. Tillo was staring at the control panel and its attractive buttons. An irresistible desire got hold of him to press the most prominent of all buttons, the red one. He moved. There was a shrill whistle, and Tillo found himself the center of attention. His father pulled him away roughly and restored the red button to neutral position. But the damage was done. The mechanical hand in the spacecraft ceased to work. So it stopped his work. At a press conference held by NASA, a scientist was briefing the world press. So, so everything has been going on smoothly with the Viking mission. There was a small hitch. The mechanical hand, which was to dig out the Martian soil for examination, has developed a malfunction. We don't know the cause, but our technicians are confident they'll sort it out. So, you get that? This is what NASA is saying. Our mechanical hand has gone to Martian, the Mars. So this story was happening in Mars. So they are there underground, and shortly afterwards there was another press release from NASA. The mechanical hand is working again thanks to the efforts of our technicians. Soil samples are being collected and examined. Soon we will know the answer to the question whether there is life on Mars. Life on Mars, of all the planets in our solar system, Mars is nearest in location and physical condition to our Earth. So the scientists behind the Viking mission were hopeful of finding life on Mars, but they were in for a disappointment. The Viking mission found no signs of life on Mars. So you understood? It was about the story of people in Mars. Yes? So let's finish off the last bit of the quiz. It's a very short quiz. Okay, let's finish it off as quickly as possible. And because we are already out of time, Okay, so first, grandfather suggested that Timothy should be put in another the cage. The reason was that a leopard in the next cage would constantly rush at Timothy. The tiger had become very bad-tempered. The cage was too small for a full-grown tiger, so it was the leopard who was disturbing Timothy. That's correct, actually. Grandfather's prophecy was that the tiger would one day make a meal of Mahmoud, grandmother's, and the cook would disappear together from the house but prefer Mahmoud's bed. So it was, I don't know why it's showing the red one. That's the answer. That's not a problem, we know the story. Tiger was still licking his arm with increasing relish. The phrase in italics, this is the italics one, suggests that Timothy smelled fresh food, recognized an old friend, no, was good natured, no, smelled fresh food. Okay. When Timothy was about 6 months old, a change came over him. The phrase in italics mean Timothy had grown to his full size, Timothy grew more friendly, or Timothy grew less friendly. He, in fact, was getting more dangerous. Okay. So this is the last. The compartment in which grandfather and Timothy traveled had no other passengers. That is true. True. That's actually true. So we are done with the quiz as well. So, how was the last chapters of your text for now? In next class onwards, we are going to start grammar. I hope you all are having and learning a lot and having a lot of fun. So, see you guys in the next session. Bye bye.